The views expressed in this podcast, Champ and Tramp, belong to the host and guest, not the Champ and Tramp podcast itself. It's intended for entertainment information, so please use discretion. We're not responsible for any outcomes resulting from the content discussed. For athletes like myself who are always on the go and busy with training and life, it's challenging to prep meals and getting proper nutrition day in and day out.
Come on, Frankie. It's not hard just to grab a burger at the drive-thru.
No, Raj. I'm talking about quality nutrition like steak and potatoes to make sure I'm fueling my body before I'm at its best. This is why Muscle Meds created Carnivor Lean Meal. This right here is a whole natural food meal replacement, providing you with 40 grams of beef protein isolate along with 40 grams of carbs from sweet and white potatoes in each serving.
No way. That's pretty badass. How's the taste, though?
Delicious. They just dropped this Mocha flavor latte, and it's fire. Go get you some and put the burgers down, burger boy.
I'll take your word for it and grab one now, buddy.
And that goes for anyone out there who's struggling to prep meals. Head over to musclemeds.rx.com and fuel your body to perform at its best with Carnivor Lean Meal.
Real show, here we go. Real show, here we go. You know that it's gotta be that time, so this is what we chant. What keeps on getting them all amped in advance? Come on. You and I rocking out with Iron Man, FE. You get the general's point of view on top of Roger's rants. Whenever tapping out, we're putting the most minutes in. You already know what that's about, you know that winners win. Crush whatever's on task, check the podcast. It's the champ and the tramp, let the bomb blast.
Good to go, Raj.
Good? Okay, cool. So I'm excited for this one, Frankie. I know you are too. We've got a great guest tonight. We've got Bill Spadea in the house. If you're from New Jersey, you know Bill Spadea. He is the voice of New Jersey 101.5, and he is currently running for governor of New Jersey. So, Bill, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you, Roger. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Frankie, good to see you. Thanks for having me in, guys.
Yeah,
absolutely.
man. Yeah.
I want to thank you. You're running for the highest land in New Jersey, right? I mean, governor's the highest office in Jersey, right? And thank you for coming on Champ and the Tramp. I don't know if that's the best.
Can we ask about the tramp part of Champ and the Tramp?
I'll tell you the Tramp. So it rhymes with Champ, first off.
All right, we got that.
Roger is not so much a tramp, but, he was on the Jersey Shore show.
All right, so I get it.
So, that's kind of how the spin on that. But, Rogan did get Trump elected.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying, right?
Guys, I'm here. I get it. I'm here, man.
We are no Joe Rogan by any means. But we are. I'm a business owner. I was a plumber before I was a fighter.
Yeah.
He's a truck driver. We both have kids that are in the school systems. Yeah. So we are your voters, and I feel like
real people.
Real people, blue collar people. And I'm glad you guys came and talked to us.
Thanks. I mean, my audience was real people. Now, largest audience in the state, and third Democrat, third Republican, third Independent, because most people don't care about politics until the politicians start taking away your rights, start shutting down your businesses, wreck your kids' education. Then people get pissed off and like, whoa, hold on, wait a minute. Yep. And somebody asked me today, they're like, what? I've been in business. I worked in real estate for a long time and opening up franchises, training. I worked for Jim Weichert for a big part of my real estate career. Then I got into television, got into radio and broadcasting, and I own a small business I started that we make films and sell to Lifetime Movie Network, Lifetime TV, so it's kind of cool. But what I learned on the radio is, like, people are pissed because you now can't afford to be separated from politics, and people hate politics.
Yeah.
But the politicians are wrecking things.
You said it so well there because, 6 years ago when we started this podcast, never did I ever think in a million years we'd be talking about politics, you know what I mean? Or interviewing.
I was going to say, did you ever
I'm
have a candidate on?
I'm not going to call you a We've had some, Ian Smith, we've had a few.
Yeah.
Right. But never, when things directly impact your life, you take an interest in it. You know what I mean? You want to see a change, especially if not for you, especially for your children. You know what I mean? So,
well, you think about, truck drivers in particular. You're paying the high cost of fuel, you're paying the high cost of insurance, and you're traveling through New Jersey, and the roads aren't great.
Absolutely.
So it's like, well, what am I exactly paying for? Yep. And my I was on 6 to 10 a.m., so 10 years. A lot of truckers calling at 6 in the morning.
Yes.
And I would say 9 out of 10 of the calls were to complain about something in New Jersey.
Right.
And then you think about electricians, plumbers, like skilled trades, welders. These are things that we all knew guys that did it growing up, and now you send your kids into the schools today. Nobody talks about being a plumber, electrician, or iron worker today. So we've lost the thread because so much is all about every kid's got to go to college, which I think is ridiculous. I mean, I've said this, and this started when I was on the air, but just for years talking to families that had small businesses saying, why is everything in high school geared to get my kid to go into debt to go to college?
Yeah.
They're going to end up on my couch.
It's the biggest scam there is. And
I
that's
agree.
the only loan that you cannot go bankrupt on.
Right.
No matter what, you're paying it.
You're paying it.
You're paying it. That's kind of crazy. You're giving kid. I mean, you're a kid. You're a kid when you're essentially 18. When you're going to college.
Well, if I think about it, my producer, fantastic, and now produces a show in New York. She's in her 30s, has 2 kids, still paying a college loan.
Right.
For a degree she got that had nothing to do with producing radio shows.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I think her last $800 a month, something like that.
Why do you think the trades aren't pushed more? Well, I mean, they're crucial. They're important.
Well, I think it's
Not
two things.
as much of a
One,
money-making.
I think that the challenge is that when you get into the trades, when you get into a small business, you're an independent thinker. And honestly, the government doesn't want that.
Yeah.
Government doesn't want independent thinkers. This is why I spend as much time fighting with Republicans as Democrats, because the back room of the Republican Party doesn't want an independent thinker. You start talking about new ideas, you call out the Republican candidates for saying stupid things and pushing stupid bills that raise our cost of living, that infringe our freedoms. They don't want to hear that. They're like, no, just get along. Everybody just get along, because there's a political class and then there's everybody else.
Right.
And, I'm the non-political guy running to smash what they have in the political class and actually represent the average guy, because I've been there. I served in the Marines, and my wife and I have been married 30 years. We've got 2 great kids. I've got a great son-in-law, but my daughter and son-in-law live in London. We'd love them to come back here, and London's a mess right now.
Yeah.
And we would love to be grandparents here in New Jersey. Now, our son Michael is in San Diego. He graduates from San Diego State this May. And Frankie's a big fan.
That's awesome.
Big fan.
Yeah.
So he and his buddies will be watching.
Yeah.
But they do. There's a different culture with the younger 20-somethings, because they went through COVID. They realized that all of the nonsense from our government, they were lying about the vaccine, they were lying about the treatments. I mean, they closed open-air basketball courts to keep kids locked up inside.
Insane.
The dumbest thing you could think
Insanity.
of. But let me tell you, these guys, they do some MMA training. They've got a couple of cool gyms out in San Diego. It's a different culture. And, it was my son that got me to stop eating seed oils.
There you go. Yeah.
Right?
Smart.
It's hard to shop, though. Let me tell you. It's hard to go out to eat.
You can't go out to eat.
Right?
My wife's always like, do you use olive oil? I'm like, yeah. I'm like,
you did not tell you.
They were
There's
actually,
no way.
seed oils were actually originally created to lubricate gears, correct?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it was.
It's an
originally.
engine lubricant.
Exactly.
Yes. Nuts.
So,
Right.
Anyway.
you were talking about not being a career politician and, being inspired to run. I mean, Trump sort of set the blueprint for that, and here he is, doing his second term
and think about what he did for New Jersey. Like, you think about, this is a guy that lost by 16 points in 2020. And then, the Republicans just give it away to Murphy in 2021. We had a horrible candidate. He's running again, 3rd time. The guy doesn't believe in anything. That's the problem. He changes his tune for whoever he's talking to. Trump comes in and loses by less than 6 points.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. And I've pointed this out. I said this, I spoke at FDU earlier today. And I said, what's interesting to me is that there are an estimated 900,000 illegals in the state of New Jersey.
Wow.
Now, we're a state of 9 million people.
Yeah.
You're closing in on 1 out of 9, 1 out of 10 New Jerseyans is here illegally. It's a huge number.
Yeah.
And the problem is, you've got Republicans like the guy I'm running against, Jack Ciattarelli, who support, still to this day, driver's licenses for illegals. And they make every excuse in the book. Well, highway safety, training. Get out of here. That has poured more uninsured motorists onto our roadways than ever before. Right. So that's why you're jacked up on all your insurance costs. Right. But more important than that, or maybe equally important, they're voting. Because the legislators, this whole cabal in Trenton said, we're going to couple voter registration with getting your license. Yep. And you've got this 2019 Immigrant Trust Directive, which says nobody can ask a question about immigration. So the cops are stifled, teachers can't ask, hospitals can't ask. You're just paying through the nose for people that shouldn't be here.
Well, Murphy's under investigation right now, right?
I love it. Alina Habba has him
coming
under
after him,
investigation.
Yeah.
I love
Put
it.
a memo out to the state police saying basically do not assist immigration and customs, right? Essentially.
How is that possible
that.
that we have a governor that has literally told law enforcement, don't enforce the law?
Well, not only that, what was it, a few months back, he basically said he was harboring an illegal, didn't he?
Yeah, he had a guy.
Like,
He said he had a guy over his.
a
right?
woman, I thought. Well, I don't think he specified.
Somebody.
but
I don't know
yeah,
if he specified.
Yeah.
That could have been a reality show. If you
Sure could have.
I'm just saying. I don't know.
Yeah.
I wonder if there was someone actually living up there. He kind of walked it
He
back a
backtracked
little.
it a little.
sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
But just think about how ridiculous it is that here we are in New Jersey in 2025, and you've got we have a serious problem, double-digit increase in car thefts and the number of home invasions that go with it. People flocking out to get their concealed carry permit.
Yeah.
And this dude's making a joke.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
You got yours. You went through the whole thing.
He and I went
Yeah.
together.
Yep.
Yep.
I was so aggravated. I got my concealed carry in Utah, and it's good in like 30 states, but not here.
Yeah.
And the way they run, it's so aggravating that I have not gotten my Jersey license
It
yet.
would be great if
Yeah,
Trump got the reciprocity laws.
That's what we need,
That would
yeah.
be great.
Yeah.
Because I have it in Florida, New Hampshire, Virginia.
We
and
should
here,
be a
so.
constitutional carry
Absolutely.
state. I
Right.
mean, it's ridiculous.
Absolutely.
Constitution guarantees it. You can put restrictions in place for guys that are axe murderers, but
Yeah,
you
of
know,
course.
but there's a lack of understanding of the foundation of this country and the freedoms that we have, and why it's important for people, civilized, legal, law-abiding people, to be armed.
Yeah.
It's a positive. You need
Well,
that.
a lot of people are waking up to it.
Yeah.
You know, I think, like you said, kids are talking about politics. My kids, they're in high
Right.
school. My daughter, like Trump, she's 10 years old. You know,
I love it.
You know, Ocean County is a very big, you know, red county.
We love
so,
Ocean County.
Yeah, and it's just COVID really exposed a lot of things, like you said. You know, exposed what the government is doing, how they don't have our best interests in mind.
No.
And it's from federal to state. You know, and it's kind of disheartening. you
Sure
know?
is, yeah. Yep.
They're all bad because they're in it for the wrong reasons. Like they're in it that politics is how they make a living. Let's face it. Most of these guys that get into politics, they'd never be a success in the private sector unless they were, you know, somehow making money off of somebody else's hard work, and that's what they do in politics. And it's just gross. I mean, you know, people ask me, like, what are you doing? I walked away from a very lucrative media career. You know, I had a show on Fox TV for 7 years, had a great show on the radio. But the reality is that someone's got to fix it.
Absolutely.
It's all the same guys running with the same platform. Then they're like, oh, that didn't work, so let's take a poll. Okay, here's the poll. Let's talk about that. It's not how you lead.
Right.
It's not how you lead.
I see your political opponents are running ads, you know, taking little excerpts of you saying pathway to citizenship. Can you clarify that once and for all? What your
well, first of all, it's funny to me because 15,000 hours is what we estimate is publicly available on things I've said. Like, that's a lot of hours.
a lot, yeah.
Right?
You can pick and choose a lot.
Right. So they found 3 20-second clips. So the one on Pathway is funny because I said the words, I'm a little more liberal than some of my conservative friends on this issue. I think they ought to have a pathway to citizenship. Now, if you cut it there, it was something I said about 8 years ago. If you cut it there and you put that next to President Trump in any recent campaign speech, it's going to sound like, I'm going against Trump. What they should have done is extend it out, let you hear the question I was asked.
Right.
So the question I was asked was, all right, you got a guy, comes here legally on a legal work visa, has a wife and 2 kids, and they're in the public schools. He's got a job, paying taxes, no crime. Should he have a pathway to stay?
Yeah.
And I said, yes.
Right.
Trump agrees with that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I seen something today. Trump's talking about trying to do something like he's deporting people, but giving them a plane ticket to come back to come in the correct way. I don't have a problem with that.
No issue. Go
I
back
don't
to your
think
home
most
country.
Americans
re-register.
do have a problem with that.
No.
With people that are paying taxes, they're not a drain
I'm
on the
saying
system.
they're going to go out and they're going to come in legally, so now they're going to be paying taxes and everything.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I don't know any Americans that
would
I
care,
know
yeah,
that would
correct.
care.
Yeah,
That would
yeah,
have
right.
a problem.
And that's what it is. So you hear a soundbite, pathway to citizenship, and my opponent spends millions of dollars just saying Spadea's a liberal on immigration. He took the liberty of saying Spadea opposes Trump and supports the sanctuary state. Meanwhile, I was the first guy out there saying, we got to get rid of the sanctuary state. I'm going to eliminate every one of Murphy's directives from 2018 and the 2019 Immigrant Trust Directive. I'm going to strike down by executive order on day one. Like that's it. And we're going to mobilize the National Guard and have our state police and local police work with ICE, work with enforcement and removal operations to go in and get the bad guys. Because to me, this is a question of public safety, number one, where you do not enforce federal detainer orders. So federal judge identifies a bad guy, said that dude he's been accused of something very serious, whether it's rape or murder or something bad, and they're here illegally, so they issue an order, you got to go collect him. When ICE and ERO in New Jersey try to go get him, our law enforcement can't cooperate, so we don't enforce them. Right. So how many tens of thousands, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of bad guys are running around this state with no enforcement? So we're going to enforce it on day one. But then you think about, what does that cost us? $7.5 billion a year is the estimate. The uninsured motorists, bail reform. The guy gets pinched, he's got no record, he's out in a couple hours, right back on the street. So
that was pretty mind-blowing. I read that 2024, I think it was $7.3 billion is what it cost taxpayers. That's insane for, that's insane. It's crazy numbers.
It's unsustainable. It's not fair. You got veterans that are sleeping out under the stars.
Exactly.
Yeah,
homeless veterans.
That's the craziest thing.
Think about all the kids in Newark that aren't getting an education. Think about the kids anywhere. I think about some of the food pantry lines where these were former middle class people who have fallen on hard times because our governor shut us down for 2 years.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. I just saw an article today talking about food pantries. John Bon Jovi has that one at the Ocean County Library.
Right.
And
isn't he being sued?
It's at the Ocean County Library now.
Oh, really?
But our new
the mayor's suing him, right?
Is saying that it's attracting too many homeless people in there, so he's trying to shut it down. Yeah.
I don't know where to go with that.
I'm not sure because you're trying
about
to
our mayor here in town.
I've heard a lot. There's a lot of controversy here.
A lot of controversy.
The police don't seem to be a big fan.
No, because he sent that letter out.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
He sent that letter with their names and their salary. I would have, if I were advising him politically, I would have said, let's just not do the letter. Right. If he had left the names out,
just put the
and put the salaries.
Right.
But even that, look, we've got to have pro-cop leaders in place, period, end of sentence. That's it. I want to get rid of the police licensing. What a stupid thing that Murphy added on. One more layer with these guys. Yep. It's hard enough to be a police officer, and you're going to make it even harder. The rules of engagement, they can't engage. And, they get to a point now where the cops are looking over their shoulders saying, well, what's the next hammer to fall? Am I going to be the next viral video because I arrested a perp? And, I spent a lot of time on the air 10 years, and every Friday was Blue Friday. So every Friday I honored local cops. And I've spoken at a number of the 200 clubs and other, and PBA events and FOP.
200 clubs.
Right? It's an important charity, right? You're helping families of the guys that gave the ultimate sacrifice.
Right, absolutely.
And the challenge I'm finding is that cops are frustrated because they don't get a fair shake in the media ever. I shouldn't have been the only one out there doing it, but it's hard. You're hard pressed because when they get a video of a cop putting down a perp, trying to arrest a guy, it's ugly.
Yeah,
and it's 9 seconds of ugly out of context.
Exactly.
Right?
They do what they did to you. They take we talked about this a few episodes ago. They'll take a 45-minute video of the entire interaction, and they'll pull a 9-second clip out of it of the worst of the worst.
You'll look terrible.
Yeah, and it's then
and God forbid you're two different skin colors.
Yeah,
then
you're
forget it. Now it's a racial issue.
Yeah, they just make it racial. Right
Everything.
No matter what the background is, they make it racial. Yeah. That the media, that's their job, right? It's just the kind of.
It's a shame because the media used to be, let's report on the facts, let's inform the public of stuff they're not going to know day to day, because you're raising your kids, you're going to a job, you're trying to get 10 minutes to relax, and we're going to tell you the news of the world and all that. It's been completely corrupted into clickbait.
Yeah, sensationalized.
It's awful.
I'll be honest, I was a little blind to it until the term, which obviously Trump coined the term fake news, came around. I started paying attention. I'm like, my God, we are being lambasted with absolute fraud.
But the market is speaking. Like podcasts like this
Correct.
are where people are getting their news because
Right,
you're
yeah.
going direct. There's no filter.
No, yeah.
So whatever questions you ask me, there's no script, there's
Right.
no filter. You're going to get
Right, I mean,
raw.
yeah.
Joe Rogan really
Answers.
has become one of the most powerful people
Absolutely.
in
Yeah.
America for sure, because he is so unfiltered. And
They keep,
what
they
I like,
keep trying to look for the Joe Rogan of the left. I don't know if that
yeah.
exists.
Hey, not going to happen.
What
Not
I
gonna
like
happen.
that Rogan does is he seems to be very fair. I do think he leans a little to the right, obviously, but he was willing to have Kamala on. She
Yeah.
didn't want to come on,
Yeah.
but he seems to be,
Could you imagine
Yeah.
Kamala Harris for
Yeah,
3 hours
yeah.
without a script?
No way.
I mean,
It would have been
how
scary.
long? There would have been bets over under how many
yeah.
minutes. But all of a
How
sudden, her
much
brain
cackling-
turned
how much
off.
cackling
It
would
would, it would have been a
You
lot
could
of
make a
laughing,
drinking
yeah.
game out of that.
Yeah.
That would have been great.
I mean, I think we know why she didn't come on, but I mean that certainly helped Trump,
Yeah.
to win the election.
But he showed humility, kind of.
He
You
did.
know what I mean? He showed he's a human being.
Yeah.
He could sit there and talk for 3 hours and, just kind of seem like a normal person. I mean, not many presidents. I don't know any president could do that.
Well, and think about it. He's not a young man.
Right.
He's
yeah,
not a dude
yeah,
in his
yeah.
30s. I
Yeah.
mean, what is he, 78?
78, yeah.
Do
Do you-
3
do you-
hours like that?
Do you have any criticisms of Trump? Something that's, I guess,
Yeah.
recently, I'm a big, First Amendment and Second Amendment guy, and something that's bothered me a little bit recently is that student from Colombia. He was a Palestinian student that was
Yeah.
over here legally, going to school, and he was doing a lot of peacefully protesting against, obviously, what's going on in the Middle East. And they detained him, and he's awaiting
He's
a
gonna be
court
deported.
ruling now,
Yeah.
but he may be deported. And he was peacefully protesting. I'm not sure how I feel about that. But
I'll say this. I think the Constitution protects the peaceful protests of Americans. I don't like the idea of foreigners coming in here and you're going to advocate for terrorism. I think that I was fine with that.
But was he advocating for terrorism? I wasn't at these rallies, clearly, so I don't have all the information.
I'm glad you said that because I actually did a town hall, a Zoom town hall with some Muslim groups a couple nights ago. And what you'll learn about me is that I will say what's on my mind, no matter who my audience is. You're going to hear the truth. You're not always going to like it. I've been booed a lot of things. I mean, it's you. To me, truth is paramount.
Yeah.
So they asked me about that, and I said the same thing. I said, look, these guys are here because we're giving them a student visa. Right. If you ask me, we're way too liberal with our student visas. Right. I think we ought to spend a lot more time and energy helping American high school kids get into the trades, get into community college, get into career and technical education, and we're filling these slots with foreigners coming in. So I could make an issue of that either way, right?
Couldn't agree more with that.
But then I say, here's what I need help from with the Muslim community and advocates. I went and did a protest, not really a protest, but we did a stand-up video and drove through Paterson, New Jersey. Mayor Patterson declared it Little Palestine, the Palestine capital of America.
Yeah, I saw that.
And I said, if that was done to celebrate Muslim culture, if that was done to, talk about diversity, no one's going to have a problem with it. Here's the problem. 2 problems. One, you've got a sanctuary state. So all these self-proclaimed Palestinians, we don't know how many people are in the city illegally. And as Murphy directed law enforcement not to cooperate, so did the city government officials, all the folks that were at this press conference. And I don't know how many of them hold actual jobs with the government, but they certainly presented a platform publicly to advocate for people who were here illegally to avoid ICE.
Right.
That, to me, you've now crossed the line into you're harboring criminals. So then you ask the question, well, how many are criminals? Yep. And then I said, the other thing is interesting to use Palestine because when you look at the polling, and again, no judgment, but offer an objective fact that a year after October 7th, 2/3 of self-proclaimed Palestinians in Gaza and West Bank not just supported Hamas, but supported the October 7th invasion. At some point, America's got to get tough with people who are advocating violence against our allies.
I agree. I mean, I think
Within reason.
I think there are special circumstances to be here on a student visa for sure. You know
Absolutely.
what I mean? Where that line is a little questionable for me. But you brought up something. I'm going to talk about the elephant in the room here for a second. You brought up something about speaking your mind, no matter who you're speaking to or whatever. Do you remember years ago? you and Todd Frazier, a good friend of the show, had a little, and Frankie jumped in on it. You guys were going back and forth.
You and I have it out on social media.
No, honestly,
little fisticuffs
Did
was
we?
going on, yeah.
Did you see the New York Post article? They had me with the black eye.
Really?
Yeah. And Todd Frazier.
It was over the school budget, I think, right? School budget.
I had no idea. I was jumped in like being. I had no idea what the conversation was about. I jumped in, so that was kind of my bad. And then
he was so mad at me.
Yeah. What was that about? I honestly don't
think
even
it was
remember.
the school budget. I think.
All right. Look, I'm not innocent in this. I'll come clean with that. I was a little snarky with him. It was over the Toms River bond.
Okay.
So they got burned by the state, and I get it. And they were asking the voters to approve. I think at the time it was like $40 million. So I'm using the radio platform saying, guys, you got to vote no. We have to rein in spending somewhere, and your reaction to what the governor's doing is going to put a burden on local taxpayers. Well, that did not go over too well with my friends in Toms River, including Todd Frazier, who they brought in. Now, here's a guy that I don't think has ever been involved in politics.
No.
Right? He's a baseball star, and everybody knows him from the Little League World Series. This is a guy that's hometown hero. Somehow they get him to weigh in on this. So I'm like, oh, all right, they're going to use a celebrity, Todd Frazier? Now I'm going to get involved. And I said something snarky about, with the average you had last year, you probably should stick to baseball.
I know. I didn't know I got that personal.
So I will come clean that I did. I took that shot. He was pissed. And it went back and forth until my wife, Jody's like, can you please stop fighting with Todd Frazier? So the good news is we were both at a charity event maybe 2 years ago. We shook hands. It was all good. It was all good. It was all good.
That's great.
It was, for me, it's never personal.
No.
It's always, how do I get the message out? And sometimes social media doesn't allow you to have real conversations.
No, you know how to take stuff.
Yeah.
Tone, even texts, like when you text someone.
Yeah.
Maybe I should call them. That tone might not sound too good on a text.
I love the phone now.
Yeah,
and I'm on the road. I mean, it's a big state. We're doing 6-7 events a day. So I'm in the car 4 or 5 hours a day.
Wow.
But it's way easier to call people instead of texting and everything else. Where you're right, it gets completely blown out of proportion.
Oh yeah.
How's that? Well, first of all,
I love that you brought up the Todd Frazier thing. That's awesome.
I want to kick it back to my original question because I kind of stole that from you. Any criticisms of Trump?
Yeah.
So I was critical during his first term, and it's actually something my opponent Jack is using in all his ads. Because there was an article that I wrote outlining 3 things where I think he failed. What's interesting is I've had the unique opportunity to be able to bring these things up to the president himself, and we had a laugh about it. I had it on the air. We talked about it. We talked about it privately, backstage. And the 3 issues were, number one, I think he should have used the military to stop the Black Lives Matter and Antifa riots.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The idea that the military didn't come in and shut that nonsense down immediately. Every one of them should have been arrested. I mean, people lost their lives. Absolutely. People lost their businesses, their homes. This was anarchy. That should have been shut down in 12 hours. So that was number one. Number two, when the president, so this was 2020, it's March, they told us 2 weeks to stop the spread.
Yes.
Okay. Funny, because I got a note. Apparently, a radio host is an essential employee. All right. You got to love that. How ridiculous, right? So I get a letter, but it's dated in May. And I'm like, oh, this is not going to be 2 weeks. We are in for something. It was my letter that I was supposed to show the cops if I got pulled over. I'm like, no, I'm essential. Here's my letter.
That's funny.
So he said, I'll never forget, the president said, we're going to reopen by Mother's Day. And I said in my article, he should have stuck to that. And he should have fired Fauci and Birx, and then for good measure, Chris Wray, and cleaned house with these guys. They were clowns undermining him.
Has he backtracked on that at all? If he has, I haven't.
Well,
seen it.
we had a great conversation, and and basically what I said on the air, because then the third point, and then I'll show you how it weaves in. I said, we knew that there was spying going on with the absolute weaponized Justice Department after a then candidate Trump, and why no one went to jail for that, why there was no investigation, I'd love to know why, because I think somebody broke the law. There should have been a swift and severe penalty for what they did during that 2016
talking about when he ran
election.
Against Hillary, right?
When he ran against Hillary, they were spying on him, they were tapping the phone. Come on. It was all nonsense. So so the issue was, and I brought this up on the air with him publicly, and I said, Mr. President, there were people that really betrayed your agenda, and there is a deep state, and they were working against what you were trying to do. They undermined you. I said, will it be different in the second term? And he said, oh, yeah, there were people that we shouldn't have trusted. Absolutely. And you know what? True to his word, President Trump is doing it. He's cleaning house. He's making the government finally accountable and working for us. But I didn't agree with warp speed.
Yeah.
I didn't take the vax.
Same. Neither did I.
I was
It's
so
kind of like the hill we were going to die on. You know what I mean?
Oh, let me tell you, I drew a line in the sand with my company, and I actually wrote an article called "Line in the Sand," and I said, "Look, you're going to find a new morning host." And I was a big part, and was until the day I left, of their revenue. So it was but it was a tense conversation because they were all through that 2-year period. My wife and I are like, I don't know, am I going to lose my job this week? Like, they're really pissed off. They're all, we were the vaccination information center. It was all, don't criticize Fauci. And it even carried over into this ridiculousness in Ukraine and Russia, that when I started criticizing Zelensky as a fascist who shut down opposition press, closed churches, and they bombed their own people.
Yeah, they didn't have an election, right? I mean,
right. They're like, oh, you pro-Putin? I'm like, just stop. Stop, right? Stop. So I think there are things that if you support someone, as I have supported President Trump since he came down the escalator, knew that this was the guy, the disruptor, the leader, the common sense populist who was finally going to be a leader for working class, middle class, regular people who put food on the table by the job that they go to work every Monday. You got to be able to criticize some of the things they do.
Of course.
Yeah, well, that's part of the job, right?
And that, I think, is part of my problem with my Republican opponents. Honestly, my Democrat opponents, we'll see when we get to that point. We're planning to win this
primary.
primary.
Who are the Democratic opponents?
Well, you've got Mikey Sherrill, who we expect to be the nominee. She's a congresswoman in North Jersey. Josh Gottheimer, who's another congressman in North Jersey. You've got Steve Fulop, who is the mayor of Jersey City. Right, Ros Baraka, who is the mayor of Newark. And wow, he'll be wild if he's the nominee. It will be a wild election cycle because he has already on stage yelled at me, called me a racist and a fascist for not supporting diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Wow.
I mean, so we're in for some fireworks if he's the nominee. Then you got Steve Sweeney, former Senate president. But I'll say of Sweeney and Fulop, I know these guys, and you can have a conversation with them.
Yeah.
They're actually real guys.
Reasonable.
I mean,
Somewhat.
look, they're pretty far left, but Sweeney was an iron worker, and he and I have had conversations because I've had him on the air. By the way, I've been super tough on him. I mean, I have attacked him viciously for his policies, but it's not personal. Right. Same thing with Steve Fulop. The guy served in the Marines, so okay, I was in the Marines. There's some common ground there. The other guys are real politicians. They just kind of say whatever they feel they need for a check or a vote. So I was asked earlier today, who do you think's your opponent going to be if you win the nomination? I think it's Mikey Sherrill, and the challenge she's going to have is you got to defend, and she's already been doing it. 7 years of Phil Murphy, almost 8, and 4 years of Joe Biden, and her entire game plan is attacking Trump.
Yep.
Whereas my Republican opponent, here's the good news for us. Our ads, our messaging is similar because I'm effectively running against a Democrat. Jack Ciattarelli supported the changing of birth certificates so men could pretend they were a woman and then use the women's spaces. He supported and voted for, he supported licenses for illegals. He actually voted to jack up our taxes. He voted for an increase in the income tax. He voted for an increase in the gas tax, increase in the sales tax. So the guy is a liberal. And all of a sudden now, because polling shows that 91% of Republicans in New Jersey love Donald Trump, all of a sudden, after giving money to Chris Christie in the primary in 2024, he's now a Trump guy.
Yeah.
I think the president sees through it. The guy will say anything, but it's interesting because they're attacking me on being critical of the president that I voted for 6 times, if you include the primary.
Right.
So I've never wavered from my support. That doesn't mean you can't criticize and have some constructive dialogue.
I think it gives you more of a reason to criticize. You supported him. You're kind of on the team, and
right. Right.
Also,
we get to have a
because of
say.
your career in, like as you said before, because of your career in the talk, they have so much to pick and choose from. You know what I mean? So it's a little unfair in that regard. But yeah,
But you know, still after 15,000 hours, they only found 3 clips.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
not
that's-
bad.
yeah.
That's not
Right?
bad.
Yeah, one they oh, this is great. There's a mailer out now. And by the way, I go to these events with a Sharpie, and I've encouraged people to bring the mailers. So I sign them. And I'm like, I want you to keep this because on election night, June 10th, we're going to tear them all up, and that's going to be the confetti
There you
that
go.
goes across the floor at our victory party.
That's what Trump did
Right?
to Bill Maher. Bill Maher.
He did that to Bill Maher. Yeah, he
brought
signed
up
it.
All the things that he called him. He's
He
named
signed
him
it.
over the years, like scumbag, piece of garbage, whatever. And Trump signed it for him.
Well, when he had him over for didn't they have
Yeah,
a meeting?
had him in the
Oh,
White House,
wow.
Yeah, and he had him
That's
sign it
great.
for him.
That's
That's
great.
amazing. It's amazing.
That's what he's a good sport like
He
that.
is.
you
He's
know?
a good
Yeah.
sport.
got a
You
sense of
have
humor.
to be. But too many of these guys, their problem is they take themselves too seriously.
Serious, yeah.
You know, Mikey Sherrill takes herself so seriously.
Yeah.
Jack Chitterelli takes himself so seriously. I'm like, guys, it's not about you.
Once
It's about
somebody,
About the 2021, like, I remember watching. I was actually fight week. I was,
Yeah.
in New York City fighting, and me and my team were watching the 2021,
Yeah.
governor election, and it was like 12 o'clock at night, and it looked like Citarelli was going to win.
Yeah.
I don't remember what county that got.
Bergen.
Bergen.
County.
It was wrapped up. It said it was done. It was wrapped up, and then the morning I woke up and he, they
Yeah.
get 40,000 votes in it. Is that legit or what?
That was
So
mail-in ballots.
there's 2 sides to it.
Yeah.
The problem, of course, is the automatic mail-in ballots. So I think legitimately when you force a mail-in ballot, you're going to have late votes, no doubt about it. Here's the problem. It shouldn't have been close. Right. Chitterelli had it. It was his to lose. And I say this because I hired Bill Stepien. So Bill Stepien ran Trump's campaigns. He ran Chris Christie's campaigns. And he was involved and saw the data from Virginia and New Jersey. Because remember, there are only 2 statewide elections in the country in the odd years. So New Jersey and Virginia, same thing this year. In Virginia, Glenn Youngkin wins by 73,000 votes. Jersey, Murphy gets reelected by 85,000.
Yeah.
Nobody called the Youngkin race close. Actually, Chris Christie beat John Corzine by fewer votes than Murphy beat Chitterelli.
Is that right?
Nobody called it close. Why did Chitterelli call it close? Because he was setting himself up to run again. Now, 9 years, $25 million, 2/3 of it from the taxpayers, because as a candidate for governor, for every dollar we raise, we get $2 from the state. So you've been subsidizing Jack Chitterelli's ongoing permanent campaign for governor over almost a decade. But here's the difference, and this is, when you look at the numbers, you're like, In Virginia, Youngkin embraces Trump, talks about parental rights, protects small business, does all that, pro-law enforcement, wins. 6 out of 10 voters in Virginia voted. Flip to Jersey. He was attacking Trump. He couldn't run away from the fact that he voted for tax hikes. He was a liberal. He said he was going to codify Roe v. Wade, so he turned off all the single-issue pro-life voters. Didn't have to do that. Don't even talk about it.
Right.
But he did. What happens? 6 out of 10 stayed home. That was the real kicker.
Yeah.
And I will be honest, looking at my career trajectory, we thought, okay, we might be able to actually be done in 3 or 4 years. And my hope was the Republicans would nominate a qualified candidate in 25. So we started a group called the Common Sense Club. Now, it's 152,000 members. Our PAC, Elect Common Sense, raised $1 million in 10 months. Average donation, $11.14. So like raw grassroots. Right. They beat me up on that too. They're like, oh, you were taking all kinds of money. They're nuts. And what they do is, and it's a shame because you figure Jack has a CPA background that he'd be able to understand, revenue into a company versus compensation. But that aside, they lie. They say things just to get people going. So we had these groups, and we worked with hundreds of local candidates. My wife and I knocking on doors, school board, mayor, council, huge successes around the state. And we're getting closer. I hear Chitterelli's going to run again. I'm like, no way. No way the party's going to support this guy again. He's a clown. So we start talking to some of the county chairs. And yeah, they're like, well, we don't really have anybody else. Like, this is the guy. And he almost won last time. Like, first of all, he didn't almost win. Yeah. Second of all, and by the way, he rejected Trump's help. Trump was going to come in and help get him over the top. He said, no, I'll win my own election.
I didn't know this.
Yeah. Right. Called him a charlatan, said he wasn't fit to be president. I mean, Chitterelli turned hard against Trump. And it was his natural state because he's not a populist. He's an elitist. He's a guy in the back room. He's owned by this lobbying firm, which is on both sides of every issue. It's all about money to these guys. It's not about fixing it. So when it became obvious that there was no challenger to Chitterelli, I'm like, I'm going to leave the job. I'm going to run against him.
Yeah.
And here we are. That's how it happened.
Yeah, that's great. It's going to be one of my questions is what inspired you. So you kind of just laid it out there. That's great.
Because remember, for 10 years, 12 years if you include the first 2 years on TV, and then it overlapped for 5 years with Fox and 1015, I've been listening. A million people are tuning in, and every time things got worse in this state, my ratings got better.
Right.
And you start to think at some point, who's going to fix it?
Yeah.
And we've got a plan. I'm an annoying detail guy, and I dive into granular stuff that your audience will tune right out if I start talking about flood mitigation. I'm looking over at my campaign team over there. They're like, stop. But somebody's got to present to the people in New Jersey that they understand the details, they understand the problems, and they've got a solution to fix
I
it.
think since Sandy,
That's the
people
thing,
do
the
care
solution,
about that.
right?
Sorry about that. Go ahead, Mike.
The solution is the biggest thing. We talk about the problems all the time. We ain't got no solutions. And someone needs to bring some solutions to us,
Yeah.
Like even Board of Ed, like what's your take on the Board of Ed in New Jersey? Like you said, you mentioned how Chitterelli was okay with, because, I have kids.
Think about Chitterelli supporting
Yeah.
and voting for. He voted for it in the assembly so that men could change their birth certificate to call themselves a woman. Yeah. To me, that is a disqualifier for membership in the Republican Party, let alone governor. And it's when people hear that, they're like, that can't be true because Chitterelli's now telling us he's a conservative. I'm like, yeah, he's been a conservative Trump guy for 25 minutes because his other plans have lost.
Hard to believe that there is a large populace of New Jerseyans that want that. I mean, as parents.
They don't. The problem is that for 30 years, Republicans have settled for the scraps off the Democrats' table, and the voters are disillusioned.
Right.
So they don't participate. The reason 6 out of 10 stayed home is they're like, more garbage, 2 garbage candidates. And remember, 90% of Republicans don't vote in the primary.
Right.
Yeah.
So our campaign's very different. Like you talk about the schools. First thing I'm going to do, there's a 13-member board of ed, state board of ed. Turns out, only in Jersey, 8 of those 13, their terms have already expired. But nobody's doing anything about it. No one's been fired. Nobody's been hired. They just sit there and they keep acting.
Well, they got away with a lot of that stuff during COVID. How are they getting away with it now?
People aren't paying attention. Right. And the one vehicle to shine the light on it was my radio show because it was the largest audience in the state. So we're getting traction on a lot of our ideas because I've been talking about the same ideas for 10 years.
Right.
So we're going to fire all 8 of them. Yeah. We're going to put in pro-parental rights and pro-school choice. The way we're going to solve the school budget, because solving the school funding is the number one issue affecting your real estate taxes.
Absolutely.
And you're paying through the nose. Yeah. The average tax bill, real estate tax in this state, $10,000. The average rebate is $700. It's a joke. It's a complete joke. Yet they put aside $2 billion for these rebates, which they give. You get a check in October. Like, government gave me a check. Let me go vote for that guy again. Meanwhile, same nonsense. Policy 5756. A teacher cannot tell a mom or dad that little Johnny decides he's little Jenny.
Yeah, that's
it's insane.
It's crazy.
We're going to end it. We're going to, by executive order, I'm going to use the power of the executive to use only biology when it comes to public restrooms, sports in school, hospitals, prisons. There are guys and there are girls, and no, guys can't have babies.
Yeah.
It's enough. It's enough.
Yeah. What is a woman?
Nobody can answer that.
That was great.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about this once. I think the school district here, critical race theory, things like that. They were talking about opting out, and you said you should opt in. You shouldn't have to opt out for that stuff. You know what I mean?
We're going to kill all of that.
Yeah.
Critical race theory is done. Yeah. DEI is done.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, I went to a couple board ed meetings, in the height of COVID.
Yeah, how was that?
And it was a shit show. They can't do anything.
Well, the teachers are scared of the teachers union. You know what I mean?
Correct,
they're scared.
And they're scared of the higher ups in New Jersey because, like I said, Tom's River, Ocean County is kind of a red area, but they get funded by the blue area. They don't get what they need.
So the only solution is you got to have a strong governor. who has the guts to use the line item veto and executive orders to change it. So to me, the solution is you got to have school choice. Your money should follow your kid.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
You should decide.
Absolutely.
Right? How do we get there? Well, you need an act of the legislature, but they're largely a bunch of idiots and do nothings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to force the school choice issue through executive order by taking over first our city boards of ed. So Newark, New Jersey, as an example. Now, this data is about a year and a half old, so it's probably 1,000 here or there different, but essentially 28,000 kids in that school district. 4,000 are on a list to get into a charter school. Why are they not in a charter school? Because the NJEA doesn't like charter schools. Because Murphy and Ras Baraka don't want to free these kids. Instead, they're in a public school in Newark, which your tax dollars are subsidizing to the tune of $1.1 billion. 9 out of 10 of the kids cannot do math at grade level.
That's crazy.
What is going on? So what am I going to do? I'm going to get on the phone with them day one, January 20th, 2026. And I'm going to say, guys, you got to 5 o'clock today to release these 4,000 kids into charter schools. Otherwise, I'm going to take over your Board of Ed. There's no way they're going to do it, so we're going to take over the Board of Ed. Right. And the governor has the power to do that. We're going to do it in Camden, in Trenton, Irvington, Patterson. The reason it matters to you as a taxpayer is the cost of a kid in a charter school is 2/3 the cost of a kid in a traditional public school. Wow. So instead of paying $22,000, which is about our state average, you're going to pay about $14,000. So it's a win for the taxpayer. Then we're going to bring that money back in and use it to offset all the cuts that have happened in our suburban schools over the past 10 years. And then, and here's the kicker, we're going to lower taxes. Oh, my God, how are we going to do that? Well, if I can lower the cost of a student per student from $22,000, let's say just by invoking charter schools in our cities, we might get that number down to $18,000. If I could save $3,000 a student, that's real money. Yeah. It's a real savings. So we pass that on to the taxpayers. How? Starting at age 55, and you guys are younger than that, so it's now I'm 56. I didn't say it just because I'm already there in the window. But starting at age 55, we're going to get your tax rates reduced. We're going to pull out the education portion of your real estate tax by executive order. Oh, wow. Force the town to send you a separate bill. You're going to get that bill, and starting at age 55 through 70, we're going to zero it out. Wow. Why are you paying as a 70-year-old?
Is that done currently anywhere?
No,
nowhere, right? Yeah.
No.
Wow.
No, and half these ideas I learned from listening to people and talking to people and just there are experts out there and they're frustrated because they don't have a voice. Right. And you go to a politician and they tell you what you want to hear, then they tell the next guy what he wants to hear.
That's the way to go, though. Tell these people that don't have to pay for the kids, you know? I mean, a lot of people vote against that stuff because they think, I don't want to pay for these kids. My kids are gone and on their own.
Well, think about it. And one of the more liberal things, if we're going to call it that I support is a cost of living adjustment for our first responders. And the reason is, and I will eventually explain this, and I think my conservative friends are going to understand the math, that by denying a cost of living adjustment for retired cops and firefighters, you're encouraging, near forcing some of these guys to leave the state. So a cop that retires at 55 or 50, guess what? They might get another job. They might buy a boat. They may take their wife out to dinner 3 or 4 times a week. I don't know, but guess where they're doing it? Delaware, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, Florida. I want them doing it here. Yeah. And we've already done the math on it.
Shortage of people wanting to get into that field because it's just so, it's tough on cops right now. Yeah. So that would be an incentive to maybe, get some.
Well, I think it'll help people stay.
Yeah.
That's what we need. Sure. But I'm going to renegotiate the pensions with the teachers. And the NJEA is going to scream and yell and sue and protest. And I don't care. I've been called every name in the book.
Chris went to war with them, really. I mean, he was the first guy to kind of tackle that.
And we had such high hopes. Yeah. And then they cut a deal in 2011 with the Democrats. Yep. Now we're paying $7 billion a year into that pension fund. Wow. And it may not even be there for teachers who starting now in 10 years. They have no idea how much time they have before this thing goes dry. Right. So it's not fair to the new people coming in. So we're going to negotiate a defined contribution instead of a defined benefit, similar to what they did in Wisconsin. And I think by doing that, if you look at the numbers of what they did in Wisconsin, teacher salaries actually went up. So if we could pay our teachers more, right. If we could get them a cost of living adjustment out of their pension, and then redefine it for those folks coming in, if you define the contribution, you're going to have a set amount of money.
We love our teachers, and
Yeah, of
I
course.
want to see them have their pensions, but I mean, it can't bankrupt the state either. You know what I mean?
Right.
I remember when Christie, there was one example, it made the news. There was a teacher that had been a teacher for 30 years, and she'd accrued all of her sick time.
Keensburg.
And it was like $1 million, and they had to pay her out. It was
Yes,
crazy.
crazy.
I mean, that's absurd. Come on, you can't. Things
It's
like that can't happen.
Ridiculous.
you know?
That should be
Yeah.
capped. Not only that, why do we have 611 school districts and 564 towns?
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense.
doesn't make
Look, I give Chris Christie credit for that. He took on something that was, like that was the
big
sacred
machine.
cow, and he took it on. The problem is that we're still saddled with the damage of working with the Democratic majority. Now, to Chris's credit, though, look, he had to fight a Democratic majority in both houses. So there was obviously going to be a limit. He had to work across the aisle. The reason my plan is different is I recognize the power of New Jersey's executive office, and I'm going to use the power that Murphy used to lock us down, take away our rights, and shut us down to free us. I want to take away the flu shot mandate for take away for schools, for teachers, for nurses. Why is there a flu shot mandate? Something that they've now proven doesn't
even
work. Doesn't work.
Right.
Stupid. We do stupid things, and we energy is another thing. How are we not all nuclear and natural gas?
20%
thing.
this summer, going up
they're gonna kill us.
20%.
Didn't they shut Oyster Creek is shut down?
It's
right?
shut down. Yeah.
What
It's
is your
just
take on
'cause
that?
it's-
It should be back open, no?
So here's what I've learned, and I'm
Isn't it the cleanest, safest power there is? I mean, really?
cleanest, safest, most abundant, affordable. It has everything.
Jobs.
They say
So-
if you're not talking about nuclear energy, then you're not talking. Then you don't care about clean energy. That's the way. That's the way to clean energy is nuclear energy. From what people say.
They
Nuclear-
use one or two examples of the Chernobyls and the 3 Mile Island
And
take negative. That is so
they gotta go back
rare.
decades.
Exactly. Exactly.
The reality is this: that PSE&G is already approved for 2 pre-site approvals on 2 new reactors.
Oh.
And they can't get it through because there's no green light here. So they're green lit on day 1. Now, realistically, it's a 5 to 10 year build. So we're now thinking about the future.
Yeah.
But wouldn't it be nice if we had a governor thinking past their first term?
Right.
Start thinking about the future, right? Because I want my grandkids to live here.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I've learned a lot about energy in the last few years. We have something called combined cycle, which is a plant that produces electricity from natural gas. So there's one in Suwarren, just as an example. Produces about 400 megawatts at the plant. It's called a peaker plant. What that means is it's there for a peak energy day
Adds to the
to
grid.
add in when you go up to your max. Now, our max in the state, 17,000 megawatts is what we use on the hottest day in August. Wow. We got to produce double that so we can start selling that energy to other states. The problem with our energy plan is it's all based on this climate change garbage that they're pushing on our kids. Now, the climate's been changing since there was a climate. So to call people a denier is just stupid.
Right.
The climate's been changing. It was warmer 1,500 years ago, and they're exaggerating on the storms. We go back and we've shown more storms and more intense storms making landfall in the first 50 years of the last century, not the latter half of it. Right. So they're using the fact that the dollar amount is greater now when a hurricane hits. Why? Well, land is valued more. Exactly. The homes are valued more. I mean, come on, guys, you're making it up.
So what is your take on clean energy, though? Because they've pushed these windmills offshore so hard. Obviously, big impact on the marine life, right? I've lived here for almost 30
I don't
years.
think they even really produce much energy, though, either.
I've lived here almost 30 years. I never saw a dead whale until these things started going in. And I think I've seen 4 of them in person.
They're lying about it.
They're absolutely lying
It's
about
not
it.
only not clean, but they're lying about how they make them, how the gearboxes don't lubricate themselves.
Right.
You got oil in there lubricating the gearboxes. You've got diesel on the ships that are going out there to service them. Right. You've got these shards of plastic that, if God forbid one of the blades break, going to wreck your beach for an entire season.
What is the life of one of those? 20 years?
20
10
years. Here's
and then
where
you've got this monstrosity in the ocean that is
so. They rate energy. It's called the capacity factor. So the Energy Information Agency in Washington rates all energy sources. It's a percentage that it's producing electricity. So nuclear, 95% of the time. Gas, 92% of the time. Wind and solar, 30% of the time.
Right.
It's down 70% of the time. Everywhere they've put solar and wind into the grid, brownouts, blackouts, and you know what goes up? A reliance on coal. Why? Because people think these lights go on by magic pixies. Yeah. No, they go on because there's a power plant somewhere down the chain burning something. That's how it goes on.
Yeah.
So we're going to do 3 things. Methane out of our landfills. I've already talked to PSE&G about this. Waste Management has a great plan for it. Methane out of the landfills. Natural gas, where 80% of our homes already have access to natural gas. So that's a no-brainer. And nuclear. And, you know, Holtec is a company.
I don't know much about methane. Does that have a high, methane? Does that have a high volume of
So right now it's just being vented out of the landfills and dissipating.
Well, we get the smell around here from our local one.
Imagine if we could harness that methane coming out and your lights are on. I mean, they've got from a single landfill, a couple thousand homes.
Okay.
I don't know how the technology works, other than I know that Waste Management has the machines that do it, the plants that do it. And then I was surprised to know that PSE&G is already tapping into the landfills in South Jersey. So the opportunity is
the resource
huge.
is already there. I just didn't know cost, what the costs are like to build.
Well, I'm glad you said that. So great point you just said. We're not going to use taxpayer dollars for that. These companies want to come in and they're going to make money on the rates. They're going to develop the infrastructure. I'll give you an example. I met with New Jersey American Water. So towns have water crises. We had a so-called drought last fall, right? Everybody's screaming about, oh my God, we got to take fewer showers. Let me tell you something. 6 weeks of no rain, 20 years ago wouldn't have been a drought. But it was a problem today. So I looked into it. Again, annoying with the details.
The big one recently was the Manasquan Reservoir. Did you see? That was on the news like every day.
Yeah, because the levels went down. We average 80% capacity in our reservoirs in the fall. They dropped to 62%. Everybody panicked. Yeah. Here's the problem, and this is what the governor never talked about, but we're going to talk about, that we have cities and towns that have such old piping, in some cases 100 years old. There's water flowing through wooden pipes in some cases. So the New Jersey American Water, when I met with them, they're like, yeah, we could be losing 20 to 30% of the water out of the reservoirs. Like 20 to 30%. So this is a man-made crisis that we need to solve with infrastructure. So the reason I wanted to talk to them, they went into a town, Franklin Township, I believe it was one in Somerset County. The town was going to have to tax and bond like $15 or $20 million to upgrade their water infrastructure. The company comes in, they're like, no, we'll pay for it. Nothing to the taxpayers. Guarantee that we'll hold the line for your current ratepayers, and we're just going to make a profit over the years, but no cost to you. And here's $10 million in cash. Wow. That's how to do it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
No cost to us.
Absolutely.
So I don't know. I don't know for methane. I know it works. I know they're doing it. Yeah. And I know there are plenty of companies. And when PSE&G,
sort of a
they
new
said,
technology. So
PSE&G said, look, we want to make the investment.
Yeah, right.
We want to make the investment because it's for the long term.
Of course.
Yeah.
So,
especially if it works like that. Jeez.
Yeah, this summer, 20% energy.
You're gonna feel like a punch in the face.
Everybody's gonna have.
I don't know if I should say that to you, Frankie. Maybe not. Maybe it won't be exactly like you have felt a punch in the face.
No, so you look at a bill, that's probably worse than a punch in the face.
You've never seen a bill in your life. Renee handles that.
Yeah, well, that's true.
You got a better half a dozen.
Yeah,
I get it. I get it.
Are you worried, nervous at all? Because obviously, when you enter that political sphere, you've been, I'm sure, attacked. You've had criticism because you've been on the radio. You're very outspoken, but now it's almost like your family is up for grabs now in that political.
Feel about everything?
So I'll say this: we've had death threats, and our local police have been great. We've got a couple of retired state troopers we work with. Where if we're going to a place where we know that some guy made a threat, that I'll have a guy with us. And the cops are pretty good. They drive by, they stop. So shout out to Princeton PD. You guys are awesome. And now I've got 9 cameras surrounding the house. I got one camera that yells at people when they cross the driveway. So it's kind of ridiculous if you think about it, that you enter the political world and people want to hurt you.
Yeah,
It's insane. But the family is 100% supportive. I mean, you know, my wife and I have been married 30 years, right? We're happy. We've got a great family, but it's personal. I want to stay in Jersey.
Yeah.
Look, it took me a long time to convince her that Jersey was the place to go. She's from Rhode Island. We lived in D.C. And I'm like, no, Jersey's it. That's the place. So now it's her adopted home state. My kids were born in Jersey. I'd love them to come back. I tell the story. When I was a kid, I don't know about you guys, but we would go to Sunday dinner at my great-grandmother's house. Every Sunday. It's gravy, by the way. I don't know how that washes in this house, but it's Sunday gravy.
Absolutely.
Right? Of course.
Absolutely.
And you think about it, 4 generations eating dinner in the same dining room. Now you ask people about generational families, they're like, grandma, grandpa couldn't afford it. They moved to Florida.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, no, you're
kids
right.
moved out to Pennsylvania because the taxes were cheaper. I want to fix that.
Keep people here,
Yeah.
Keep
No,
me
Is it Taylor ham or pork roll?
All right. I'm going to give you a straight answer on that. Again, I'll always tell you the truth.
All right.
It's neither.
Neither.
Here's the thing. Taylor ham and Case are 2 brands.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And pork roll's the product.
Exactly.
There you go.
Exactly.
So the question is,
Yeah,
what do you
go.
like, Case or Taylor ham?
I agree with you.
All right, there you go. I
agree.
Ask me about Central Jersey, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
It does exist.
Does it? Where is it?
But, well, here's the thing. I have a map that I drew because I got pissed off because the legislature actually acted on this. They're like, oh, there's North, Central, and South. I'm like, stop. That's not true. There's North, there's Central, there's South. There's the shore.
Sure. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
You tell somebody in Monmouth County that they're in Central Jersey,
I
they're
agree.
like, they'll fight you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right?
I sound from the shore. We're from the
You're
shore.
from
I
the
live
shore.
by the beach is 5 minutes away. You know?
Yeah. Now, when you get to like Atlantic County, Cape May County, that's South
Yeah,
Jersey.
yeah, I agree.
They're all.
Agree.
It's a, you know, South Jersey
Yeah,
to me
what
is
do
all
you
Philly.
You got to give the Pineys their own little area too. The Pineland peeps. You know.
Well, you could get into that because the folks in Warren County and Sussex County will yell at you.
Oh, yeah.
That they're like, you know, they want to be their own state. They're
Absolutely.
all Republican there.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You don't find any Democrats in that. We lived in Warren County for a while. It was almost too Republican. I wanted someone to fight with, so I moved to Princeton.
yeah. I was going to say
You'll find a lot of people fighting over there.
Let me tell you.
it's definitely on the liberal side over there for sure.
We moved, first house we bought in Princeton, we lived on Ewing Street. There were like 80 homes. My wife and I were the only 2 registered Republicans.
Wow.
And then I looked it up. I bought the house from the last 2.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like, oh, I'm in the Republican quota house. That's where we are.
Oh, that's good. They want to know where you're at. Make sure they know where you all.
They know.
Yeah.
They know. That's right. That's right. Contact tracing on Republicans. Exactly.
So the primary though is June 6th. Is that right?
June 10th.
June 10th.
Changed,
But-
right? Murphy changed it.
They
Jewish
changed
holiday?
it. So this is a Jewish holiday. And the great news about this change is we get one more week, which is for a grassroots guy that's doing, you know, a couple of town halls every couple of days and 7 events a day. Fantastic. Another week. Right. The best part is when I win the nomination, the Democrats have one less week toward the general because they have 6 people who are all polling around 11 or 12%. So who knows who? I think Mikey Sherrill pulls it out, but it's they're going to have to start from scratch, and it's going to be easier for us. But early voting starts June 3rd, by the way. So you can vote in person early, June 3rd through Sunday the 8th, and then nothing on the 9th. Election day is the 10th. Mail-in ballots go out this Saturday.
Wow.
Is there an opportunity to debate your?
Yeah, we had a great debate.
You did.
Yeah.
On
They had the
there'll
one
be
debate,
2
right?
more.
Yeah. One.
We had
Once-
one
oh, yeah.
in February.
Okay.
It was just awesome because Jack came out like a lunatic in his opening statement and started calling me a liar, attacking me. I'm like, Jack, we just got here. Like, you know,
calm
just
down.
chill out for a minute, right? You know, like, and he was such an attack dog that it was embarrassing for him.
Wow.
Got to a point, he was plugging this website. They've got a couple of fake websites up that let people think it's my campaign website. It's just attack. So one question, he stopped short, and I'm looking at the clock. I'm like, hey, Jack. And thankfully, I was next to him. It was just grated on him. I'm standing next to him. I'm like, Jack, you got 20 seconds left. You want to plug that website again? So it just diffused the whole stupidity of it. So the next debate, May 7th.
May 7th.
And then I think that's a public television debate. And I actually like the idea, the format. There's just questions. There's no open, no close. They're just going to rapid fire stuff out. And I like that. Yeah. And then May 20th, which is the same folks that sponsored the first debate are sponsoring one. Now this one, 2.5 hours.
Wow.
It's almost going to be like the Joe Rogan of debates.
Yeah, that's what I was
2.5
wondering.
hours.
I wonder if
Yeah.
you'll see that more often. Like now that people are
love
liking this long form conversations. I mean, you get to really know somebody. You get to really, it's tough.
Yeah.
You can go out there and say some good, some good quotes, have some good stuff saved, but you go 2.5 hours.
You better
you're
know
gonna
what you're
get
talking
exposed.
about.
Yeah.
Well, then it becomes a conversation, not just an interview. You know what I
Right.
mean? You get to
Right.
develop your personality, and I think people like that.
You do a
Rogan.
little couple weaves, throw a weave in
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
I love it. What they ought to do is you guys ought to host a debate, and it shouldn't be a debate. It should be one-on-one. Each candidate sits with you guys for an hour.
Yep.
You're going to know
Absolutely.
who they
Yeah,
are
who's
at the
who.
end
Yeah,
of it. You're going to know.
Absolutely.
Because you can't hide it. Your natural personality comes out.
Yeah.
And I think that happened for Jack during the first debate. Now, my guess is they probably screamed and yelled at him at the end of that. And they're like, what the hell were you doing? You look like an ass. What are you doing? And he'll be much more toned down. But when he has to get into the detail of policy, he's going to have trouble. Because people are sick and tired of talking points.
Right.
Like, it's easy to tell somebody, I'm going to lower your taxes.
I feel like you're not a guy that has a handler either. You don't have someone in your ear telling you what to say. You had all those years on radio. You know what
Your ideas are your ideas.
Right.
So Tom, my campaign manager's here. Ask him when I'm out of the room how they feel about how I go off the cuff. Do you want to make consultants nervous? Just get me in front of a mic. They're all mad because I still control I still have access, I should say, to my Twitter account.
Okay.
So every once in a while, I just throw a couple
Hey,
punches
that's
out.
a lot like
Yeah,
the
like
big
I-
boss.
yeah,
I like the big boss.
But no handlers, no scripts.
That's great.
Even it was funny because we did a couple of panels where all the Republicans, all the Democrats were on there, and they're all writing notes and scurrying around, and I just listen.
Mm-hmm.
If you can listen and respond, that's what people want.
Yeah, for
You don't have time to go research stuff when a
Right.
constituent asks you a question. You better know.
Yeah, right.
So you better be up on your issues, and it very much seems like you are. So
I was getting up at 3:30 in the morning for the show. It started at 6, so I would read a solid hour and a half every day. Get a workout in, read an hour and a half, do the show live. And, 4 hours, and people are peppering you with questions, and the delay's not long enough to go to the Google. Like, you got to know.
You
you
gotta
got
know.
you got Chat GPT now, so you can
You do.
Chat GPT. Am I saying
Chad?
that? Chat.
This guy knows Chad.
I was gonna
He knows
say.
Chad. He knows Chad.
That's not what I said,
The
buddy.
tramp is coming out. What's going
Roll
on?
the tape back. Bill, it has been. Oh, go ahead. Were you having
No,
another
I'm saying
question?
I was a political science major in college.
Yes.
believe it
No
or not.
kidding.
Yeah. I wrestled in college. That's what I really went to school for.
Do you
And
miss fighting?
I do. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I own a jiu-jitsu school, so I'm on the mats every day.
That's great.
Giving
Yeah,
back
that's
to the
great.
kids and some adults and whatnot.
That's
So,
awesome.
Yeah, I'm still in it. Training some guys.
That's great.
So I still stay close to it. But I was a political science major, and I remember I didn't really care too much. But I wasn't a school guy. I
Yeah.
was a wrestler. But I thought I wanted to be a lawyer at one point.
Yeah.
And they didn't have pre-law, but they had political science. I'm like, that kind of goes. I'll
Yeah,
do
sure.
that. I said, maybe if I don't be, I'll maybe be a cop. I end up being a plumber. So,
The
but I remember
trades.
my
Again,
Probably
the trades.
good money in the trades, though.
yeah.
right?
My old man owns his own plumbing company
That's
and
great.
all that stuff. But I remember my professor was like, the politician's number one thing is to please the constituents.
Yeah.
It's to please the constituents. That's their number one. To get reelected, they got to please their constituents. And I just don't feel like these politicians are doing that lately.
No.
You know what I mean? They're not pleasing. Who are they pleasing?
You know what it
know?
is, Frankie? They act like they're pleasing them by telling them what they want to hear.
Yeah, right.
What they want is you to solve the damn problems.
Yeah, some resolutions.
That's what they
Yeah,
want.
right.
Yeah, we all know what the problems are.
Well,
we
that's
all
how
have
Trump,
awareness
That's
of
how
it.
Trump got in there. Is
That's
people
right.
were tired of
Yep.
the same old
That's right.
BS.
Right.
They wanted somebody that didn't have the political background, that got things done, got results, and admittedly, under his own admission, in 2016 he made some mistakes. He wasn't prepared, and this time you're seeing a whole different game.
I like to think of it as I think, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but if I were analyzing this or talking about it as a like postmortem, okay, what happened? I think he had the mentality that it was this corporation of America, and he was the new CEO, and everybody has the same goal. We got to make a profit. We want to get our bonuses. And he realized there's a deep state that wants to undermine that. This permanent bureaucracy that comes at us. It's bad.
So this is definitely conspiratorial, but is it like almost seems like these people that are the deep state, like they don't want the best for America. It seems
No.
like it's almost like they want us to go down a couple notches.
Think about how much
globalists.
Fauci profited
Yeah.
with the forced vaccines
exactly.
and everything.
Right.
How much money?
He's done some heinous things.
heinous.
Like,
He ought to be in prison.
People don't.
But
really,
he won't be.
Yeah.
He got pardoned from 2014.
I know.
How crazy
Can
is
you
that?
imagine?
It's like
They were all in it. They were
Yeah.
all in on
Yeah.
it, man. We're not in on their joke.
Yeah,
That's
right.
the problem.
We didn't get invited to the
That's
party.
why
Yeah.
I'm running.
Yeah.
That's why Trump ran. That's why I've got to win this primary.
Absolutely.
And I'll tell you, when we win this primary, the appeal that I've got to cross party lines because of my audience. I mean, it wasn't all Republican.
Right.
Third Democrat, third Independent, and half women. Most talk shows are 80% men. So we broke some barriers down, and that's going to do really well in the
polling,
general.
for sure.
But look, I'm a solutions guy. It's easy when something goes wrong to blame everybody else. Like right now, my potential Democrat opponent, Mikey Sherrill, is blaming this organization called PJM. And PJM, nobody's ever heard of PJM. It's this regional authority nonprofit set up by the federal energy regulators. Their job is to make sure energy is coordinated between 13 states so that if we have a failure, we're getting energy from somewhere else so the lights stay on. They're blaming these guys because they just want to take a shot at Trump. Meanwhile, these are the same politicians that pushed wind, solar, banning fossil fuels, banning gas cars. Give me a break.
Yeah.
It's their fault that our energy costs are going up.
Is that right? Murphy's trying to ban the gas cars.
It's true.
Yeah. Come on.
By 2035, I think they want to have zeroed out.
Well, he's out of there though. What can he do? You know what I mean? He's gone. He can't.
He's
do,
gone.
yeah.
We're going to end all that crap on day one.
Right.
Gas cars. I'd like to see an incentive to buy a gas car.
Yeah.
Maybe
nice.
the bigger the car, the bigger the incentive.
There you
How
go.
about that,
Yeah,
right?
know that.
Enough. Let's encourage
Well, I mean, you
more
see
trucks to be bought.
States like California, right, that had such.
Yeah.
They gave so many incentives. So, but now they're not getting the gas tax, and now they're sending
They
out.
don't have enough charge. You can't even charge your car over there.
But now they're charging
Can't charge
you
the car.
Yeah.
to have an electric vehicle
Right.
because they're not getting the revenue.
Right.
Well, now they don't like Tesla either. That's why.
Well,
Well,
how
like
about-
Elon now. You know what I
How
mean?
about all these crazy liberals?
Yeah, going after the
trashing
Tesla
Teslas.
trucks. I know.
Insane.
Because
They
they're
used
so
to,
dumb.
They used to love him, and now they hate him. Isn't that
Now they-
crazy? That's
well,
crazy.
when Bud Light jumped the shark and did that stupid thing with the
With
trans
the
guy, that nonsense.
Mulvaney dude or Mulvaney.
Conservatives weren't burning down stores that carried Bud Light.
Yeah, yeah, right.
They just stopped buying it.
Right. Hit him where it hurts.
Come
Yeah,
on,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
I don't know. Now I want to buy a Tesla.
Yeah. Kind of. I'm kind of
Right?
with you.
I want the
Andrew's got a
driver.
Tesla.
What's it? Do you love it? I want the AI one though. I've been watching these videos on X where like it parks, if it's a tight spot, it folds the mirrors in. I mean, I don't know.
Well, they're gonna have robots that could. They're gonna have Tesla
That
robots.
Boston Dynamics is
nuts, man. I
You
don't
see
know.
that Boston Dynamics?
Yeah.
Some of the videos they put out. They're-
When they put out the first Tesla robot that like runs a house, so I want to come back on because we're all gonna have our tinfoil hats on.
yeah.
We're like, oh man, what's coming? I don't know. The robot wars have begun.
Bill, I know it's getting late.
Yeah.
I cannot thank you enough. You're on the campaign trail. You've been at it all day. I'm sure you're tired. I'm sure
Thanks.
the family would love to see you.
Yeah.
We can't thank you enough, man. You have
This
our
is great.
support.
Yeah, no, this
you
is
have
awesome,
the support
man.
of
Really.
Champ and
Thank
the
you.
Tramp.
Yeah.
And
Thank you. Appreciate that.
you've been
And
doing.
I mean, hopefully, as you go, if there's anything we could do to help
Yes.
you along, definitely reach out.
Well, I'd love to come back on after the primary.
yeah, let's
Yes.
do it.
Yeah,
Let's
I'd love to come
Yes.
back and talk
Absolutely.
about how we're going to win the general.
When
Yeah, let's
when
go.
we can say that we put you over the top, we
Yeah.
can be,
You guys will get all the
Absolutely.
credit. I'm going to come back to thank you for winning the primary.
Sounds good. Sounds
Awesome.
good.
Before you leave, Bill, you got to sign the board. We got to grab a picture with you. But
Done.
thank
Yep.
you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Great.
Appreciate it,
Thank you.
guys.
What's up, guys? Make sure you follow us on your favorite podcast platforms. You can find the links in the description below. And if you've enjoyed this episode, hit that like button and share it with a friend. Your support keeps us growing.